Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. This man to my left or right, I don't know, virtually, whichever, and the other split screen here with a light-up toy, dog toy. I don't know. What do you got going on there, Brian?
It's a sonic toothbrush. I'm cleaning my mouth so that I can spit on people as soon as possible.
Oh, so you're going to be polite before you do it, right?
Yeah.
Man, dude, I don't know where I wanted to actually begin today's show. Usually, you know, sometimes we say we're like the least prepared people. We say that all kidding. We have some form of preparation, but sometimes we at least have a format. And I don't have a format for this one because there's just so much to discuss. I know I want to make sure I discuss everything, but we've got Jalen Ramsey being disqualified, ejected. The language is disqualified, but thrown out of the game, basically. You've got the officiating that led to a lot of that and allowed or permitted what they condone, they permit, you know, in many ways. And I've got a new word for you. You know, we used to say the word asshat a lot, Brian.
Yes, we did. Asshat is a great word. It remains a great word.
Do you think the white caps are technically asshats? Or, I mean, the only one guy gets to wear the white cap on the crew. And I don't want to just completely dump on all the officiating, but man, refereeing, that was a tough day in the NFL for officials yesterday, especially.
Let me just put it this way. I think that the very coinage of the term asshat was inspired by refereeing. So are referees asshats? I think that's by default. All referees are asshats, but not all asshats are referees.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. However you justify it. Yeah, it's quite a bit, man, because I mean, I'm watching some of these other games, and I want to say it was the Ravens and Browns game. It was one of the guys that the Steelers had already had this year, like Eck or Clark or somebody. I'm trying to remember who was on. But it was like when you see this guy on TV, you just know for sure, like at least Vinovich seems like he gets to the point, like they get it down and fast and they, you know, spit it out, even though it seemed like the mic wasn't working. I think that was part of the wind. It was very windy in Pittsburgh yesterday. I thought it was going to impact more of the game than maybe it did. Like we saw in some other games, like Philadelphia, for example, where Detroit and Philadelphia couldn't kick extra points, apparently. Any long field goal attempts, they were just sailing. That was the system that was coming through. In fact, there were tornado warnings actually just south of Pittsburgh on Saturday night, like probably about 10 or 11 o'clock or something like that. But anyways, so many different individual things to talk about. I don't want to talk about just fishing, but boy, there were some things that were just some head scratchers we could talk about there. Individual performances. I think I want to go there first for whatever reason, because I think they'll get us back around to Ramsey and, like, well, you know, the turning points of this game. Let's talk about, like, I was talking about, you know, Jaylen Warren being our keys to the game, right? Jaylen Warren being key, and then he gets hurt, and you have Kenneth Gainwell come in, and Kenneth Gainwell, third down back and whatever, and he scores 2 touchdowns in this game. 7 receptions for 81 yards, large usage for him. He carried the ball 9 times for 24. Not that great, 2.7 average. Warren was doing decent, but he only carried 10 times, 62 yards, 6.2 average. Then he came out. They tried to use Caleb Johnson. Would have had a nice run, except there was all these offensive face mask calls that just kept happening in this game, and offensive pass interference. It's just goofy stuff you don't see called anywhere.
That face mask call on Caleb Johnson was so weak. I mean, you know, they normally allow, you know, the stiff arm to hit the face mask, as long as you don't do one of these things with it. And he may have slightly moved the guy's face down, but it was ridiculous. I mean, the officiating. I mean, I'm going to do my officiating tirade right now. The officiating was so bad yesterday that when Gene Steratore on the broadcast is consistently disagreeing with the calls being made on the field, including the replay calls, and look, it went both ways, because I'm telling you right now, and I told you this in text when we were talking, Connor Hayward did not get that first down. Absolutely did not. and the replays.
And they went to replay too.
They went to replay and they still got it wrong.
We didn't see it, man. I'll tell you what. And they're selective when you're the home team. There's certain things they don't want to show on the scoreboard. That was one of them that didn't. And of course, the whole Ramsey situation with Jamar Chase. But before I get into that one, Brian, here's exhibit number 2, since I guess we're on the topic already. I didn't want to make this all about officiating right out the gate. We do have some good things to say, but this was ruled a roughing the passer. Roughing the passer call on TJ Watt.
Bad call.
And I think I might have another still of it somewhere if I could find it. This was like the beginning of it, right before he wraps him. And it's like, well, if he lands on him in any particular way, and he wasn't trying to, obviously, he knows the rule. He's been tagged a lot with various suspensions and penalties and things over the years, that being TJ Watt. But that was a very key point where the Steelers, they were getting off the field there. That was a third down. They were and at a key point in the game, and it just kept the Bengals in it. And I guess it's going to parlay into when the Steelers, they were up 20-9 when Jamar Chase, who had been talking shit the entire game. I mean, he was going out of his way to get in people's faces. Joey Porter was another one, just wasn't Ramsey. It was anyone that he could find. And I mean, you've got this right here. And it's like, this is post game. He comes right up to Patrick Queen and points fingers at him like a gun. And you've got this on, this is the Steelers staff photographer that's catching this, or one of the big photography houses. What's with this knucklehead? You know what I mean? So you have the two. First of all, Tomlin was on the field and was not happy with the offsetting penalty situation. Could have gotten the Steelers defense off the field there again. And there's multiple instances. I think I want to point this out particularly because when these things do go your way, I think it's going to make the defense look a little better. I know you still say, hey, predicated on turnovers. That was one of our keys to the game. Turnovers, making sure that they just didn't let Jamar Chase and T. Higgins just run around all free all over the field. But the time of possession, which they actually won by like 10 seconds, finally they won it. The officiating did not help in any circumstances. And when you had the entire Jamar Chase, T. Higgins sequence, it goes down. Tomlin's on the field. Tomlin's just like, and there was a time where they had to use a timeout too, and Tomlin's just doing one of these. He's out on the field about 5 yards, and he's got his hands up. He's doing the, pump the clock up, reset the play clock. Then he shrugs, and Vinovich gives him like a right back at him, and it was like, I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know why. And it's not the first. This has been happening. The clock issues when it comes to setting the ball and play clock, they've been pretty they've been consistent across the league in the fact that they're inconsistent from what we're used to seeing game to game or year to year so far. So Tomlin's like out on the field, and he's very animated about the offsetting penalty situation. But then you get down to a 4th and 1, and let me tell you, the crowd at this game became alive at a certain point. It was in this area and I think that the Steelers defense really fed off of the moment here, right? You had 4th and 1, and they're getting off the field. They stopped them. No tush push, nothing. They're stopped. And all of a sudden, now you have like this scrum, you have everybody fighting, and you see a flag, and you're like, oh, and then it's just like, oh, just the one guy this time. And since we already got him with one, that's the second one. He threw a punch, which you said wasn't really a punch. Again, no replay.
It was. If you look at it again, it was definitely
it's enough forceful. But I'm going to get into that too, because my first thought was, and I know you're in the back rooms too, and you might have seen me say that, and it was like, that was my first thought was something got said or he got spit on. And even after the flag is thrown and you've got people restraining Jalen Ramsey and taking him to his own bench, this knucklehead Jamar Chase is still coming across the field over onto the other side of the bench. Do you remember that Bears game? It was the one guy that used to play for the Steelers and got tagged for something like that. He had to sack, and that game should have been over, and instead it was like a penalty and everything. Oh, I'm trying to remember who it was. He got cut. He was only with the Steelers for a cup of coffee, maybe practice squad, training camp, or whatever. And I saw that happen. He went over and, gestured at the side, and they were flag on that. Like, where's all the taunting for this? Jamar Chase just ran his mouth and was permitted to do it pretty much all game long. Then he spits on someone, And I don't know, you might not have been able to see it. Maybe it didn't land a certain way, but I could tell you, if somebody spits on me, my first reaction probably isn't what some people are going to be like, oh, be the bigger man and just walk away. Or they're going to say like Dak Prescott when what's his name from the Eagles spit on him in pregame.
Yeah, Jalen Carter.
Well, there was a distance, and then it wasn't in the moment of the game. And then all of a sudden, like, I think Dak Prescott's reaction to that is more like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I mean, you're just shocked, and you don't even have a chance to react to it, right? They're two different isolated situations, because here the Steelers just made a big play and you've been hitting people for 3 quarters, and this guy's been talking smack the whole time, and all of a sudden he spits on you. I'm probably leveling him. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't talk about bigger man or whatever. You're expecting the officiating crew to observe this, and instead they only observe the retaliation, which unfortunately is a lot more common than you would think.
Of course.
Ramsey's out, and everybody's like, oh geez, Ramsey's gone. They get a first down, and the secondary's already thin, and this is really going to hurt the team, and this is going to doom them. And we've seen this story, and now the Bengals are going to be back in this picture. They're going to be back in the standings picture. They're going to have an unblemished record in the division and all these other things, right? And it didn't end up turning out that way, luckily, but it very well could have been a big game deciding decision there, or no decision, but not throwing Chase out.
Like, I mean, I let go the talking shit bit, because Jalen Ramsey talks an equal amount of shit. So that's back and forth. And so they're going to let that go. I get it. So I'm fine with that. I was fine with the offsetting penalties. You both do dumb stuff. You both get caught. Fine. I also understand that refs only see the retaliation half the time, because they're not staring at the players constantly. And I 100% believe Jamar Chase absolutely was trying to get Jalen Ramsey's tossed. And I believe that 100%, because Ramsey knocked him on his ass earlier in the game. Probably should have been a personal foul that was called there. Wasn't. But, so that they got away with that. Again, officiating was bad on both sides. In this instance, I'm sure Chase is aware the refs are not always staring at them. It's before anything happens. They're just jawing, and he lets you can see it in the video. Spit comes out of his mouth. There's no question about that. Whether it hit Ramsey or not, I don't know. That I can't tell. But if you spit at me, I'm assuming I'm going to react too. So do I blame Jalen Ramsey for it? No. Do I understand it? Absolutely. Can you do it? I don't know. Sometimes you got to try and rise above, but at the same time, it worked out fine in the end. And I absolutely, right there. You absolutely can see it.
Yeah, vindicated by a sideline camera from a member of the media that was filming this. Was not caught on the CBS cameras.
No, but it was very obvious in that view that that's what happened. So I give Jalen Ramsey absolutely, I think most people would react the same way, especially in the heat of battle, in the heat of the moment.
I think Tomlin was very non-committal about the whole thing too. He seemed like he's probably not happy that his player gets thrown out.
Right, you never want to get thrown out.
But he's probably understanding of the situation too. I mean, this isn't like, this isn't George Pickens territory where he goes and instigates, or he's starting something.
They're gonna say, you're gonna say the same thing all the time. You got to be above it. You got to move forward. You can't let that happen. It hurts the team. But anybody in that situation understands, right?
Yeah.
No. Just like even though you're gonna say that as a coach, you got to try and not to have that. At the same time, you're kind of like, wink, wink. I know. Just you should have kicked him in the nuts. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's literally that could be an assault or battery, like depending on state laws or where you live, and if you're overseas. We talked about this at some other point where it's like, the penalty for this, you go and do that to somebody, and you're in a certain culture. You're overseas or something like that. And that's still like very vile here in the United States of America, right? But you go somewhere else, and there could be some very serious, like you might be unalived for spitting on someone. So, I'm not trying to go that far, but back to Chase just for a second. There was one where he didn't even get a penalty, and I think it was Joey Porter. And you want to talk about cool as a cucumber? Probably not. He was probably fuming. He was probably talking, but he didn't throw blows. He didn't do anything extra. Chase had him by the face mask. He had both hands inside the grill of his and holding it, and it's like just nothing. Like they were letting some things they were letting things fester. Whereas if you get that right away, and you get that in the first half of the game, are they going to be dumb enough to do it again later? Probably not. And that probably goes all the way to this. I mean, it was just the series of the 4th and 1, and it was like the double penalties, and then they didn't even really get to run a play. What would have been a 4th one? It was just like penalty after penalty, and then Ramsey's gone, and you're like, the Bengals go down and they drive, and they're held to a field goal. It was a 48-yard field goal. It wasn't a chip shot necessarily, but it's now 20-12. This the fan base went nuts. And I mean, there was a delay of game that was in here, and I have never really heard where, I think our fans get to a certain point. I don't think they've ever been to a point where they've been so animated, they boo or they make noise on 3rd down or whatever, and it's just kind of like, whatever. And then, of course, it's deflating because the Steelers give up a 3rd and 16 or something, and then it's just not the same. Here you had Flacco in the huddle. The crowd is just pissed. They're at about an 8.5 here, and on the volume dial goes up to 10. And he comes out of the huddle and he's getting ready to like start trying to make some adjustments or whatever, and they're in the closed end of the end zone, and it goes a whole other like octave higher. They turned the knob, and I heard it actually increase one level, and then it broke through a whole other level, and I'm like, wow, I don't know that it's been this loud in Acrisure Stadium for years. And the people were just irate, and the defense certainly fed off of it, and it certainly did end up getting to the Bengals. I know sometimes you say momentum isn't a real thing, but Ramsey, it sparked. I think it pissed off and gave enough purpose to the rest of the defense that said, that's it, ball game. And then they started playing like it too. We didn't really get into one more officiating one that I didn't get to see the replay we saw in the stadium. DK Metcalf, offensive pass interference.
It was
so
lame.
weak. And I just watched the same.
It was very weak.
Then I watched the Eagles game, and they called it backwards. They called it on I can't remember his name right now, the Lions corner. And Chris Collinsworth actually he's just like, that's terrible, and that's going to decide the game, because it was within the 2-minute warning, and Philly needed that first down, and they totally blew the throw. Everything was out of sync, and there was just nothing there, and I'm just like, bad day at the office.
So the chip that they called him twice for OPI, right? The chip or the I guess, what do they call it? I don't even remember. I can't remember the term because I'm old and I forget shit. But that crossing route, okay, that's moderately legitimate. Did I still think it was a little? It's not like he set and hit the guy, but the extension. Look, the DB is that far away from him. He didn't push him away. All that ref saw was extension and went, oh, that's extension, therefore it's an OPI. No, it's not. The guy's not even that close to him. In order to touch him, he had to extend. It was such a bullshit call. And it was late
because the DB in that case, I don't know if that was DJ Turner.
He whined for it and he got it.
Yeah, he started doing this, and like 2 seconds later, the flag comes out, and that was part of what like drew the ire of the crowd here. But I'll tell you what else is some momentum shifting stuff. First, you have Kyle Duggar take one to the house, and you're kind of worried at this point because Aaron Rodgers goes out. We'll get to Mason Rudolph in a second, but the offense still did not look sharp. Rodgers looked off in many cases. The first drive, decent, but they weren't able to this is the Bengals defense. It was just like, he's holding on to the ball, giving up sacks. You need something here. The defense scores. And then, of course, at the end, Duggar, I think it was Chase that he just kind of sweeps out of the way at the tail end of that tried to make the tackle at the end. And what a play by Duggar. Taking it all the way. James Pierre's going to have one a little bit later. I've got something to say about Pierre too, but Duggar, having been 3 games now with the Steelers, maybe 2 full weeks of practice, playing excellent. Got his flowers from Tomlin also, talking about on the backside. This Steelers defense has been a lot more solid. That's been the quote unquote major change or major difference. There it is there with Chase. I love that. He just swept them away. He looked like one of those Shaolin masters that was just like untouchable, just and gracefully went into the end zone. I like that.
We'll talk about people who get swept away in a little bit.
Then there's James Pierre, who I want to talk about too, because what a game by him. We've been talking about Darius Slay and how Slay had been underperforming. Maybe he's the old man. And I know splash plays. He could have had a second interception too. But you know what? That one deep ball, T. Higgins, or was it Chase? One or the other. The deep ball that comes down.
Very nice play.
Very nice play. Times it perfectly. Other people would have gotten tagged again with like pass interference or whatever.
That's the key. His hand was on him. There's no question about it. His hand was on him, but he didn't turn him.
Yeah. And
that's why he didn't get an OP or a defensive pass interference call. Because had he turned him to get in there, then they'd have thrown the flag. But he didn't. So it was a very nice play.
I was wondering maybe what you thought about the flip into the end zone.
Stupid. I guarantee you that was one of those things where he went. I was pissed off at him for doing it. I'm like, we can't afford another DB to go down, Mr. Pierre.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
don't stop trying to be AB. Stop. You don't need to. Just go in and score. If you and he didn't land it either. He didn't land it well.
I know. And it was just like, great. Like they're already so thin. And it's like, oh geez, Chuck Clark's coming in for Jalen Ramsey now, and Eccles had to keep coming on and off the field. And man, Pierre, and I'm gonna sound like I'm full of shit here, but I'm going to try to be honest. The other day, I had like one of those shower thoughts. You got something that's growing in your subconscious. And I started to think about James Pierre and being undrafted and, or equivalent to a low round pick. It's just one of those thoughts. I'm listening to the radio and stuff like that. And I'm like, he's been playing pretty well. And I'm like, maybe he's turned the corner to a guy that you could depend on a little more. And I remember a guy by the name of Ike Taylor that was not hot stuff for the first few years of his career. And everybody, by the time he's at the end of his career, he's a beloved Steeler. You know what I mean? Maybe Pierre's on a trajectory like that. I'm not trying to say he is like Taylor yet, but he's certainly playing better than Darius Slay was. And to hold, you got to say this too, Brian. T. Higgins to 3 for 63. Jamar Chase targeted 10. Oh, Higgins was targeted 8 times and only caught 3 of those. Jamar Chase, 10 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards. Those guys were held to 6 for 93, and Higgins had the 1 touchdown again where the team kind of stopped and thought there was a whistle, a flag, this play wasn't going to go through. And the guys up front just were like, they didn't do it. You know what I mean?
It was insane. Even I'm sitting there going, oh, it doesn't matter. Touchdown, it's going to get called back. There's a penalty. Where is it? And there wasn't one. I'm like, it was so blatant. So like when you're talking about 12 points, they won
points,
the game, and we're complaining about the refs, and I get it. Somebody's going to come in and say, stop whining about the refs. Put your big girl pants on and all that. The problem is they were so bad.
It was bad.
In this game, they were so atrocious that even with a win, and again, I'm repeating. They weren't just atrocious against the Steelers. They were just flat out bad. They missed calls that the Bengals would have benefited from. They gave the Steelers a first down they flat out didn't deserve. I get it. They were just bad.
Oh, there's another one.
They're that bad, you got to say something.
There's another one. Nick Herbig on the Duggar return. Yeah. I don't know if you sasaw it or not, but who was it that was running in pace? One of the tight ends. Might have been Fant. And
could have been.
And Herbig actually got him spun around. He was blocking him, and then Duggar goes to go by, and he tugged him. He got the inside of his jersey and his pads. It was a very clear hold, and I couldn't even celebrate there. And that was right there. I'm down in that corner, right? I couldn't even celebrate, and my cousin's going nuts. And then he's like, "Is there a flag? Is there a flag?" And I'm like, "I'm looking for one," because that's how conditioned I am. I've said this before many times on the show. It's like I can't get happy about anything that's going on because I think it's going to get overturned or turned back. That was the nice little Caleb Johnson run. I was like, finally got a run. I think he could use a little more volume, and he's going to be a volume runner. I think he's eventually going to be okay.
I'm also going to tell you, this is what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I think Caleb Johnson is a much better between the tackles runner than he is a perimeter runner. That was a nice run that he did, and it was a perimeter run, but it didn't start that way. But where I still maintain, when you put him out on a toss and a sweep, he looks slow.
Yes.
When he can just go straight downhill, there is a lot more burst that appears there. So, they just got to figure out how to use the guy.
Yeah. And those plays, that was one of the things missed. I want to talk about one momentum shifter in individual performances before maybe we throw in a few other things here throughout the game, because at first, you're like, oh, they might still be struggling with the Bengals here. You can't give this one up. You know what I mean? 6-4 is a lot different than 5-5 with the Ravens nipping at your heels and Joe Burrow activated in the 21-day window. But let's talk about another guy. I was talking about Warren the week before, and he really gets everybody's gets the motor revving, right? Mm-hmm. Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
There
you go. Talk about guys who sweep guys away, roll over them, knock them into next week. He is desperately trying to get a Vance McDonald type stiff arm that can just be posterized. He just wants it so bad. I can feel it.
Yeah. I have more than one image. It wasn't even like the very first stiff arm was impressive as it was, right? He then trucks the next guy, and at the very end of it, I think was Cam Taylor-Britt, who ends up getting hurt by the end of this game. It wasn't specifically from this play, but he goes to get out in front, thinking that he's going to sweep or wash Darnell Washington to the sideline like these wide receivers who don't want to take contact. That's not how this guy plays football. He's like,
no,
I'm
doesn't
sorry.
Work there.
I'm sorry. I mean, we used to laugh about Derrick Henry being a man amongst boys. Darnell Washington's like a giant. He's like something like an ogre or something that's out of fantasy, not out of reality. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what he looked like? He looked like Jerome Bettis. I mean, we took Jerome Bettis for granted because he used to break tackles like this all the time.
A much taller version of Jerome Bettis.
A much taller and bigger version of Jerome Bettis.
Yes.
Jerome would be Darnell Jr. in this case. So
he doesn't have Bettis's burst, but yes,
we need the Flex Seal guy to say, but wait, that's not all. It goes and hurdles somebody.
Yes. I'm just going to tell you right now, I want him to stop doing that.
Yeah. Please don't do that. Please
don't do that anymore. I don't. You can't get hurt. I don't want you to do that anymore. Please stop hurdling.
The Steelers, I thought, were in a little bit of a pickle at halftime. I wasn't sure what team we were watching. It's a 10-6 game, right?
Let me tell you, because I told you this, I missed the first drive.
Yes,
right? Because I was bringing my wife back she had to go get some stuff for Thanksgiving for a food drive or something at her work. And so we missed the first drive. I listened to it, but I couldn't see it, right? And as I said to you, I said, I missed the entire first drive, and all I've seen for the remainder of the first half is pure trash. The offense simply looked like ass. and that's what it was. Other than that first drive, if you didn't see that drive and you watched the first half of this game, you'd go, I don't know how they could ever score. They look like crap.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. 8 plays, that was the good. I mean, they take the ball to start, 8 plays, 78 yards, score, go up 7 points. Boswell, they got stuck in the mud. Boswell kicks a 25-yarder in the second quarter, and you don't have any other scoring. It's 10-6 at halftime. Bengals come out and have the ball. I mean, they're fortunate enough they were able to score with there was let me see what the series of possession was here. I was trying to remember. They had forced a punt and actually got the ball back and were able to chew just enough clock toward the end. I think this was one of the ones where Tomlin had to burn that timeout where he was shrugging. That's where I recall specifically, because it's like, well, great, now they have less options, because they took like a little screen pass or an out or something like the Kenneth Gainwell. I'm like, why would you run that play? You run that play over to the sideline, and it wasn't the most efficient play for the situation. You just settled for the field goal when you just had 3 straight drives where you punted. So did Cincinnati, and you're like, you're leaving this team with this terrible defense in the game. And Aaron Rodgers finishes that half. Let's see here, 9 of 15, 60% for 116 yards and a touchdown. It's still a decent quarterback rating, but there were plays that were left on the field. He took a sack.
Take the first drive out of it.
Take the first
drive out of it, and it looks like it's much worse.
Yeah, it's much worse. It's at least half that. Not all of that was air yards on the first drive, of course, but he looked like, dare I say, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. He was seeing ghosts, and he was standing back there, and I'm like, something is wrong. And then you get the scoreboard comes up right after the Bengals come out start the second half. They have 7 plays for 51 yards, but the defense holds them to a field goal. And it's like, okay, good defense. Holds to a field goal. All right, we'll take that. And it says, Aaron Rodgers, questionable to return. And everybody's just like, huh? Now in at quarterback, number 2, Mason Rudolph. To which I will credit the hometown crowd. There was a very nominal applause, excitement, and buzz that was like, yay, it's Mason. Yay, let's go, Mason. Come on, let's do this, Mason. You could... I feel good for that guy. I feel happy for him. You know what I mean? It's like it took a long time to earn that kind of respect. This is his first true action back because he was with Tennessee last year before he had the little small miracle run at the end where they fire Matt Canada and they rip off 3 wins and end up in the playoffs. And he looked the part. He was changing calls at the line. He said, to the credit of Arthur Smith, that they incorporated some of the plays that he prefers. He credited his teammates, but Rudolph, and I'm not sure I want to start a quarterback controversy just yet. It's a half of football against the worst defense in the NFL, but he was seeing the plays. He was taking everything that Cincinnati was giving him, and they were giving him a lot. 12 of 16, 75% completed, 127 yards, a touchdown. That's one extra attempt more than Rodgers. He got a little more extra yards to TD and a higher completion percentage. So he was able to at least maintain what Aaron was doing, and Aaron had done in that first drive. I wish he would have gotten an extra touchdown. Everybody thought that Pat Freiermuth was going to be the killer in this game. You and I had discussed that also, right? And Pat Freiermuth was pretty much he was non-existent because Darnell Washington was out there doing his thing, right? There was a play, 3rd down maybe. Freiermuth never got off the line of scrimmage, and I think that play was coming like a little stick right up the middle. They cleared everyone else out off to each side, and it was definitely set up for him to be one-on-one, middle of the field, take it, touchdown. We've actually seen this throw from Rudolph to Freiermuth before in the past. He was like just looking over to see if he was okay on the line of scrimmage. They snapped the ball already. He never got off the line of scrimmage. 1 second, whatever. Rudolph looked off and had to go somewhere else, and it didn't end up materializing.
Yeah, I mean, there were 2 3rd down plays that Mason converted that Mason didn't really convert. I mean, he hit the right guy, but one was to Darnell, who stretches and gets the first down that they, in most cases you'd think they aren't going to. I think one was to Gainwell. Both of them were very 3rd and long, but there was one of them where they got the first down, but if you were watching the broadcast, you heard Trent Green literally almost jump out of the booth. He was so excited because DK had gotten behind the DBs and was wide open, and Mason just didn't see him. And that would have been a touchdown for sure if he hits it. But you just couldn't. He was like, "Oh my God!"
Then you had the
DK's
penalty too.
behind them. He's behind them.
He hit him really nice and straight. He hit him a few times. He was actually finding him, which was one thing.
Yes, he was.
And that was the aforementioned penalty push off that wasn't, and it was so weak. So he was finding him.
Lame. That was a terrible call. Yeah,
he was finding him. I think the thing is, we always know. Anybody who's been listening here for any period of time knows I've been a Mason Rudolph supporter. I always feel that he give this guy a shot, and we don't know what's going on with Rodgers, right? But I feel at least comfortable enough that if you have to go in against the Chicago Bears with Mason Rudolph, I feel good about that. I feel good about the way the offense was in sync there versus even I wouldn't want to trot Rodgers back out there hurt necessarily. And we don't know how long Rodgers has been hurt. Remember that speculation.
Scuttlebutt. Speculation is a fracture in his non-throwing wrist.
And maybe that's
not broken, but a fractured bone.
And that's a carryover from back before the Colts game.
Yeah.
And I worry about that for another reason too, Brian, because if he has like an undisclosed injury, and we saw, was it the Ravens that just forfeited a pretty hefty fine and a draft pick for Lamar Jackson shenanigans and how they reported his injury? So I'm hoping that's not the case because some folks were talking about that. And then he came out the Colts game. He left some plays on the field. And he said we had to play better. And you're like, yeah, they could have done better. But, they beat the Colts. Colts were 7-1. Yay, great. Defense looks like it really came around, got all these turnovers. I mean, I thought the defense looked pretty solid last week against the Chargers, but they couldn't move the ball anywhere. And it's like, And then you go to this first half and you have the one drive, very scripted, first play of the game, just like first series of the game, just like kind of like the Bengals got to do too. You have what's on in your game script and then it works. And now you've got to adjust. And now you've got to have some variety. You might have those first 10 or 15 plays already kind of there. And now you've got to figure it out from there. So it's like always when there's like that first drive and you're like, well, they thought that wrong, or okay, the other team got that right. Let's see if they can keep this going. And Rodgers did not keep it going from there. So I kind of worry about a few things with him right now, because he was more, we were talking about, hey, should he come back next year as a veteran guy? He's been better than what we expected. And now all of a sudden the things that we were leery or kind of against bringing him in have started to surface now. And maybe, I don't know if that's attributed to injury, if that's attributed to, just age and playing so many games into the season. Chicago Bears game, even on the road, looks like a winnable one. I'm looking on the horizon and it's like he either needs to be healthy or he just needs to go on the bench, because the Buffalo Bills, you just had Josh Allen score 3 touchdowns on the ground and 3 in the air in that win over Tampa.
Well, let me talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
I believe very strongly that you are underestimating the Bears. Do I think it's a winnable game? Sure. Do I think they've beaten an opponent that has more than 3 wins? No. But they have won a whole bunch of games in a row. And again, it's one of those, they've seemed to find a way to win games. So being on the road in Chicago, not always a very friendly spot for the Steelers. It's sort of like Philadelphia in that they don't win there very often. I think this is a much tougher game than you're making it sound like. But be that as it may, flip that script. The Bills, if you control Josh Allen, are beatable.
Well,
if you let Josh Allen do what you want,
yeah.
If you let Josh Allen go crazy, but if they could take and focus on Josh Allen and prevent him from doing Josh Allen type things, then the Bills are very beatable, because their defense is not that good.
I mean, Caleb Williams, he hasn't turned the ball over a lot, and we'll get into that when we get into the pregame thing, but that's kind of where I'm headed with this. He doesn't complete a lot of his passes, but he's very difficult, a very difficult guy to wrap up. He can run around like with the best of them, but it doesn't always mean the best of anything. We see Justin Fields run around and then just end up taking a sack. So Williams has done a little bit better with those negative plays this year. It's the Bears defense has been pretty solid, and depending on who's healthy and who's not there, there's also a pair of tight ends in Chicago that'll probably give the Steelers more fits than not, especially middle of the field. But I think we've seen them tighten up some of these things, Brian, even just the third down defense. And the Bengals end up 7 for 15. I think in the first half, man, I closed it. Where's it at? In the first half, they had them pretty sewn up, I believe. Let's see. 4-7. So they were actually better. They did better in the second half, actually. Wow, that's kind of surprising. I thought they had their way more in the first half. But anyways, it was the Steelers who had bad third down efficiency in the first half, 2 of 7. So, and they got a couple of those roughing the passers going their way, and that was about the only momentum that they had. Finally got the ball rolling, so to speak. But they've been better on third downs. These teams that are getting creative with the tush push things, one of these days it's going to bite somebody really bad. Almost bit the Steelers. I mean, Connor Hayward with Washington behind him. We saw Mark Andrews take a little spin move, a little Allen Iverson back out and against the Browns and run for a touchdown, which was pretty wild. You saw the Eagles get tagged. Another bad call yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. The Lions guy had a defensive lineman had his hand in the neutral zone, and the guard for the Eagles brings his hand up to he does one of these to shove or call out the guy's arm, and they called it against the Eagles for a false start on the tush push on a 4th and 1. So some bad stuff all the way around. You got to be careful with what you're doing there. But I like some of what I was seeing with the Steelers. I mean, Chase Brown didn't end up with a 100-yard game. They still gave up 99 yards to him, 5.5 average.
It was too much.
It was too much, but the personnel on the field, they were still running like that quasi 4-3, the 3 inside linebackers. At times, they did try the 3 outside linebacker thing. They haven't mentioned Nick Herbig. Man, I'll tell you what, Alex Highsmith snake bit, and he has a really good game. I was down on him. I'm like, oh, he's always hurt. He really needs. lives up to, expectation, contract, everything, and then he's out again. And it's like Herbig is playing his way into a bigger role. I mean, he already had, but now you're starting to think to yourself, this is a guy I want to leave in. I think Ramsey and Duggar have played pretty well there. Pierre's been pretty solid. I mean, you got like Chase and Higgins, and you kind of bottle them up. I could live with giving Chase Brown a little bit to chew off there. I would have liked to stop a little more, but I saw Y.A. Black get in there. I saw Derek Harmon get in there. I see some positive things, and I know that you say, hey, this defense is really predicated on the splash plays, but you know what? I think that's what some of these guys are highly paid to do, is create splash plays and make turnovers. You got to have that in your favor. So I'm not necessarily going to be down on that, but wow, did we miss anything? There was a lot to talk about. This was exciting. 34-12 ends up being the final. 2 defensive scores. Mason keeps them afloat, and now you move on, like we said, to Chicago.
Yeah, this is the way I'm looking at it. And remember, I've said this multiple times. I want to see a game where the defense wins without the need for turnovers. Can I honestly say that about this game? No, but if you took the 2 touchdowns that the defense scored off of that, it's still 20-12, right? That's still a victory. But what the problem is, you can't tell for sure what those 2 drives would have turned into. I was encouraged. I'm encouraged by the way the defense has actually played the last 3 weeks. They are consistently getting a little better, a little more synchronous with each other, a little more on top of things, playing a little more freely. Do they make mistakes? Yeah, they still make mistakes. Can they make up for them? Yeah. Is TJ doing TJ things? No.
I was watching him quite a bit. He's pretty close. He's knocking on the door a lot.
He is getting close, but he's not there. And it's harder against somebody like Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's been around long enough to feel that pressure. Unless it's a free runner who he doesn't see, it's going to be hard to get to him before he gets rid of the ball.
Smart player.
And that was the case. Smart player. So, it's a tougher task against a veteran quarterback like that. But again, you're going against an offensive line that's not very good. There's a lot of things that were good about this game. Here's the negative. Our offense didn't look good against the worst defense in the league. Until Mason came in. And even then, it's not that they looked good. They looked adequate, right? They did the things they needed to do, but they got a couple of key assists or types of conversions that you don't anticipate getting consistently. So do I want to call them lucky? No. They definitely, I said this to you then, they looked like they had a little bit of a spark when Mason came in, more so than they did when Aaron was playing. I don't know that that's a knock on Aaron Rodgers at all. It may just be the team lifting Mason up and saying, hey, we got you, bud. But they looked a little more energetic. The offensive line seemed to be a little more on top of things. Mason had way more time to throw a lot of times.
Oh, yeah, he did, man. The offensive line was looking good, and even with just 5 of them at times.
But that's the thing. They didn't look good in the first half.
And I think it's because Rodgers, I'm telling you, Rodgers has been getting the yips. He's been getting the happy feet a little bit.
He has, but the pockets were collapsing. Mason was standing back there with room. Right, the pockets were collapsing on Aaron.
I'll tell you, part of that is when you have the time of possession finally. You know what I mean? And you actually wear down the other defense instead of wearing down your own.
But that goes with my argument that I don't know how good the offensive line actually is. Somebody in the comments of the last show put in there and it's like, oh, win for all these. I just don't see it that way. I don't know that I see any of them as losses, but Zach Frazier I think is a win because they were defending the offensive line coach, I think, in that comment. I don't see it that way. I don't look at McCormick as a win for sure. I don't know that I look at Spencer Anderson as a win for sure, or Isaac Seumalo, or Fontenot, or Broderick Jones. I don't know that I guarantee that any of them are wins at this point.
I don't know, man. They've certainly come along.
They're up and down.
They're still young. I mean, Fontano's still...
They are still young.
I still technically put them in the category of almost first-year players, even though they've been on the team longer than first year, because you moved Jones to a new spot, and Fontano, missed almost all of last year, sans parts of one game against Denver in 2 or 3. So, but I've been encouraged, to say the least, because I know I know these are building blocks. I don't expect these guys to come out the gates, and win the Kentucky Derby like if they were a horse race. This is a marathon. This is, pick your battles and you win the overall war. The Alan Fanekas of the world just didn't jump in out there. I mean, pretty much even Dave DeCastro was hurt his first year as a rookie and came along.
Pouncey took him out.
Yeah, a little slowly. I mean, Pouncey's like one major exception to that rule, and he was a guy taken in the first round for a reason, even though he was a later first round pick, I guess. But he's going to be a Hall of Famer, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but they're very much exceptions to the rule. I think Zach Frazier is definitely trending. He's trending higher than everybody else. He got thrown in there a little bit sooner in some cases too. So the other guys are maturing.
I don't want to say I'm down on them.
Yeah,
right. I don't want to say I'm down on the offensive line, but here's my concerns. This is a team that wants to play bully ball. They want to run the ball. They want to move guys off the line, and more often than not, they don't. Right. There are holes at times, but more often than not, they are not getting movement off that line of scrimmage, and you're getting a yard, or you're letting people get into the backfield, and you're getting lost plays. So I'm not down on them. I absolutely expect them to have growing pains. I just don't know that I think the coaching is helping them, because I'm not thrilled with what I see. But as you said, they're young. Give them time. This is the first year that they're all playing together on any consistent level. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Do I think they have improved? Maybe. I'm not even sure I'd say that.
I think they have. I think it's funny that you brought up the thing with coaching Pat Meyer. I was thinking about some people that were on the hot seat, particularly if they would have lost this game going into the future. And I think like just the play calling aspect, if he isn't a scapegoat, Terrell Austin, for example, is one. Traditionally, again, his defense have given up gobs of yards. The Steelers were still like one of the worst, if not the worst, pass defense in the NFL, right neck and neck with the Bengals heading into this game. So, but for me, this was a big one. They needed this one in the AFC North.
Absolutely.
They needed this one in the overall standings, and this one also is a gut punch for a Bengals team that finds themselves in the same position they were last year, where they had that slow start, and they are now 3-7. Yeah,
I believe that's
3-7.
3-7.
And the Steelers are 6-4, and just 7 losses. They would have to win every single game going forward. And I mean, they've still got some divisional games and stuff too, where they're just that doesn't look likely for the Cincinnati Bengals. They drop one more loss, they're probably out of the picture completely.
I think mathematically they still have a chance. But realistically, they don't.
No,
I mean, there's a big question of whether it's even worth bringing Joe Burrow back.
Yeah.
Do you go? You know what? Let's just cave the year. We stink. Why should we jeopardize our top 10 pick at this point? That's the way that they got this offense put together. Was Joe Burrow gets hurt, and so they get Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? It's like, is there just one of those scenarios? If they want to improve their defense, hey, keep this, because you're going to be able to draft a high edge rusher or a cornerback or something. I honestly think the right move for them is to not even bother, because what if he gets hurt again?
Yeah, they were trying to stay afloat with Flacco, you know what I mean? And then you got the Browns.
Yeah, I think it's just over now. It's just over now.
And then with the Browns, Shador ended up out there. I feel bad for him in one way, only because it's like, this is the tale of having two different types of quarterbacks, where you have a Mason Rudolph, clearly has some experience in the league, but always been able to come in cold and still maintain a certain, standard. And then Shador, who's completely inexperienced, has never played before, and it's like, well, come on, guy, let's go. And it was not a good showing for him. And the Browns
watched that game.
The Browns showed that Baltimore is totally beatable, right?
Absolutely.
They were all over Lamar Jackson's stuff, and they gave up a big play or two. The one to Flowers, the final touchdown that they got completely tricked on with Andrews rolling out on the supposed tush push. But Cleveland's kind of into full rear view. I just wanted to throw out there, like, the whole thing with Kansas City that's going on and how they've lost all their one-score games. this year versus winning almost all but maybe one of them last season, and the major difference that makes towards championship aspirations. They're behind Denver now. Now you've got Kansas City in a wild card situation, right? You've got the Buffalo Bills still in a wild card situation, and the Colts are leading the South with the Jaguars there. So you look at right now where you've got the Steelers and the Ravens. There's only 3 wild card teams out of the 4 divisions. Kansas City's missing a tiebreaker against a lot of those teams. You maintain a better record, you're going to get into the postseason more than likely. But for Cincinnati, there's not going to be 2 teams coming out of the North. It's just mathematically improbable this season, like it would have been in past seasons where the South was just completely bad, the AFC East was completely bad, and you could pull a team from one of the other 2 that are left standing.
I think that it's going to be, well, I mean, the Jaguars are coming on. Obviously, they dismantled the Chargers. What's their record right now? I don't even know.
I'll pull it up in a second. I was like, that was also like a byproduct of having played the Steelers.
Yeah.
You come out of that Steelers game, then you go on the road, you go over to the East Coast and play in Florida. The Jaguars are 6-4. They have the same record as the Steelers.
So 6-4, same record as the Steelers.
Chargers are 7-4.
Here's the thing. I'm at the beginning of the season, people are talking about the fact that there may be 3 teams coming out of the North, right? The champion and 2 of the wild card spots. I don't think you get out of the North unless you win the division. I think that's very likely at this point.
Well, we forgot about the Chargers at 7-4 too, and they had an undefeated record in their division. So that's going to be.
I mean, I think that's what it's good. Those 2 Raven games are going to be played specifically. There's a chance, right? I mean, the Steelers have to take care of business against the Bears. If they drop the Bills game, they drop the Bills game. But they're going to have to at least minimally split with the Ravens and win all of their other expected win games, right? I can see them realistically, getting to a position where you're tied and the game at the end of the year is for the division.
Yeah, and maybe it will be. With that to be determined,
but
like a Saturday night game
isn't going to be in the playoffs.
Saturday night
it's not
AFC
going to be in the
North
playoffs,
or Sunday night football AFC
Please
North.
No, I really don't want it to be a Saturday night game.
I don't either. I've
told people this over and over again. All I really want, you know what I want for Christmas? I just want a damn home playoff game. That's all I want. I just want to be able to go to a damn home playoff game just once. Then I can die.
Well, no, please don't do that on us, Brian. On that note, and I'm looking to tie up the show, and then it's like here, and Brian's just like, well, and then I could just go. We'll miss you, buddy. Don't go anywhere. Maybe, you know what?
I had no intention of doing that.
Don't. You want to go see more than one home playoff game and maybe an AFC title game.
I'd like to see multiple home playoff games and maybe a Super Bowl, but still.
Well, I don't know about a home Super Bowl, but there will be an NFL draft. College game day being there. They did a good job on the field, by the way, from that Pitt Notre Dame game. It was trashed and it looked immaculate yesterday. I don't know what they did to. So all the people we were talking about and complaining about with the field, and DK slipped on one of those too. Rudolph had a nice little pass.
I saw Jamar slipped on a couple of plays. DK slipped. So there was still some traction, but I think it was much better than the really bad game.
There was rain too overnight and whatnot. Like I said, the weather was kind of goofy, and then the ground got hard too because it was cold, it was windy. All this and that. Steelers looking ahead now after this victory, 34-12 over the Cincinnati Bengals, improved to 6-4, still first in the AFC North, looking ahead to a trip to Chicago to face the Bears on Sunday. We'll be back with the pregame show later this week. We'll see if they can keep it going now 2-1 in the division with a 1-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens. Steelers are also 5-2 in the AFC, whereas the Ravens are 3-3. So that's going to come into play as well. So as long as they take care of their own business, the Steelers, that is, they shouldn't have to worry about all these other scenarios. So, Brian, thanks for joining me once again, my friend.
Always happy to be here.
Always happy to be here, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. We've been putting out some other really cool stuff, too. So, and then Brian's got, that's kind of creepy, dude. You're gonna be in an Invisalign commercial like Patrick Mahomes.
I gotta prepare myself. I don't want when I do spit on someone, I don't want to be rude about it and have it be disgusting. I'd like to have nice, clean, fresh breath when
so
my
it's just a
spit hits
2%
them.
talk there. We didn't really bring this up, but aside from a fine, he should get a game suspension for that.
He should absolutely be minimally suspended for a game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's precedents. Jalen Carter
Didn't because
suspended
it was
for a game.
So he missed that entire game already, and they said that fulfills
considered
it.
that the suspension.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
But he absolutely should lose a game. We'll see. To me, at this point, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care what they do to Chase because we don't have to play them anymore.
I know, and they don't have to.
I think they're a footnote to the division at this point.
Yeah, you don't have to toss dirt on them anymore. But you know what? I don't want him to get away. He got away with. He got away with that.
Suspension.
He got away with it.
And at the price tag he's making per game, that's a very expensive fine.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, folks, that'll do it for us. Until next time. My name's Joe, losing my voice, and my good buddy, colleague, and pal, Brian. And as always, we close out this show. We're happy. It is Victory Monday. Enjoy it. We'll see you again later this week. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.